University students storm Parliament to protest against moves to pass legislation that will force them to pay utility tariffs.
Government is playing politics with us, telling the students that we are not paying, telling the vice chancellors and telling the utility companies to take the charges of the utility from we the students. You can't operate the school effectively without electricity.
So what exactly do they want? We'll be finding out. But also this evening, former VRA boss Dr. Charles Rekubrobe warns Ghanaians will be paying more for electricity from emergency power plants, which are very likely to end up becoming white elephants as government forces utility companies to sign on to unrealistic agreements.
Politicians decide and force ECG to sign PPAs, whether we need the plant or not. And that's why you keep hearing politicians saying that we're going to export power, as if it's like cocoa. It should not be. You see, anytime a plant is sitting idle doing nothing, it reflects in our tariff, because we are having to pay what is called capacity charge, which is simply a charge for the plant being there.
So what available options are there? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. Standoff in Parliament today sent the entire House into a security chaos as agitated university students pushed their way against security protocols to meet the Speaker of Parliament. They are not happy with plans to legalize the payment of utilities by students of the various universities and colleges. Our reporter Elton John Brobe was in Parliament today and spoke to one of the agitating students.
You see, early this morning, we had a meeting with the Vice Chancellor's Ghana. And during that meeting, the Vice Chancellor's Ghana communicated to us that government has indeed written to them to charge for utility bills. But this is different from the position that government communicated to us. I think the problem here is that government, through the Education Ministry, they write to the students telling us that we are not going to pay for utility. This same government, through the Finance Ministry, they also write to the utility companies and also writes to the vice chancellors that indeed the students of Ghana are going to pay. So there is some kind of confusion and dilemma. When you go to the vice chancellors, they tell us that no, government told us that we are going to pay. When they come to us, we are not going to pay. They've started disconnecting schools. Yesterday they disconnected UMAT. They are going on a disconnection exercise throughout the country. They've threatened KNUST, my school, that they are come to disconnect us. There was no conclusion because we students of Ghana, government has communicated to us that we are not going to pay, and we know that education is a right, not a privilege. So if the vice chancellors, and you see the position of the vice chancellors is also that they have been communicated to by government that we the students are supposed to pay for the utility. That is the issue here. So government is playing politics with us, telling the students that we are not paying, telling the vice chancellors and telling the utility companies to take the charges of the utility from we the students. You can't operate the school effectively without electricity. Even with those who study the liberal arts and social sciences, we need projectors to work in our classes. You need microphones. You need other things which all borders on electricity. We are also going to pay utility. If you don't get water to bath, water to drink, or water to cook, how are you going to bear these conditions in school? So the schools or the universities will be left with nothing else but to close down the schools. That is the situation right now on the ground. They have sent disconnection teams. UMAT was disconnected yesterday. Other universities and other institutions are being disconnected. And we as students of the Republic of Ghana, we can't sit down for all our schools to be disconnected.
Right, so let's get to one of the student leaders, Raymond Ayilu, who is now joining us on the telephone. Raymond, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
We are fine.
Great. Now, tell me quickly, I want to know what it is you want. I mean, I would expect that as a student group, anytime you make a decision to go on a protest or go to Parliament, you would send out prayer communication. But turning up in Parliament that way, somebody will ask, what for?
Well, let me say good evening to your listeners. Basically, we were called today as student leaders representing various students at the various universities for a meeting with Vice Chancellor Ghana.
Okay.
Now, we went to the meeting honorably with good intentions, waiting to hear what our Vice Chancellors have for us.
Say.
Now, at the meeting, the Vice Chancellors told us categorically that since 2013, government haven't paid utility bills to them. And this is causing a lot of frustration among them. And for that matter, the purpose of the meeting was to meet student leaders for us to decide the way forward. Now, we said that was a good intention. And before we continue with the meeting, then they should first of all tell us their position on the matter as Vice Chancellor Ghana. And then we will also put our position forward. And so the chairman of the Vice Chancellor's Ghana, Professor Didi Kupoli, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, told us that they have met, and for them, students to take the responsibility because government has written to them that they cannot take the utility bill payment.
Right. So at that moment, you decided to take the law into your own hands and go to Parliament. That was a security breach.
No, we also came out to meet our students, and we came to tell them, well, a communique from the Ministry to student leaders, government said they have not restrained from that responsibility. And so we were shocked that we are here and we don't even have a government rep to tell us the current situation. And they said, well, if that's what we are saying, then the meeting should come to an end. And we said, no, the meeting cannot come to an end like that. You have called us. If there are any issues, let's continue the meeting and come to a compromise. But they said that we have come with our position. They have a different position. For that matter, we should close the meeting. And that they were going to close schools down because they cannot continue to be threatened by ECG. Now, we also said, well, if that is the case, we will not allow schools to close down in this country. Not today, not tomorrow. And for that matter, we want to get response from leadership of this country. And so we decided as student leaders to march to Parliament because that's where all our leadership is found. And so that is why we got ourselves into Parliament. This is a situation we will not want to wait till the schools are closed before we will take an action. And that was the reason why we marched to Parliament. We are students, we are citizens, we have a legitimate cause. And for that matter, if we think our leaders can be found in Parliament, then we have to go to them.
Right. So your approach to Parliament, you've explained, that's very fair. But now you went to Parliament, and what are you seeking to do in Parliament? Are you aiming to force the parliamentarians to abandon the legislative process to legalize the payment of the utilities, or what?
Well, I think the reason why they are there is largely because of our citizens. And so if we should go to Parliament at any time, our students, and they represent us as students and people of this country, then we must be given hearing. Look, when we go to Parliament, we did not go to cause a looter, but it was the security people there who started everything.
Yes,
but
of course.
We said,
no, I beg your pardon. I mean, it is so because you were violating protocols. You were pushing through the security barriers in order to meet the Speaker of Parliament. That's the report we got.
We did not go for a demonstration that requires a permit from police or security. We did not go for a demonstration. We went to meet the leadership of Parliament. Unless somebody wants to tell me that students cannot meet the leadership of Parliament at any day.
But you would appreciate, Raymond, that if you were meeting no less a person than the Speaker of Parliament, you need to follow protocols. You need to make an appointment. You need to. So can I land, please? If you're saying that you went there peacefully without, in a kind of situation that did not require you to get a police license, then you need to follow the laid down procedures of making an appointment to see the Speaker of Parliament, which you didn't do. So that was a security breach.
The situation that was at hand, we cannot. Students had come from all the various regions and all the various institutions of this country. And I asked the question, if we were there for an excursion, I am sure we wouldn't be questioned. Because that is why students of this country are known to do.
Right, you would have been required to write a letter.
No, everyday citizens of this country walk to Parliament without any written notice to witness proceedings. And the place is a public place. So, the question I continue to ask is that if we were there as tourists or as an excursion, would they have stopped that?
Right. So, Raymond, tell me, what response did you get from Parliament? I'm sure that you were eventually able to meet with the leadership of the House. What assurances did they give you?
Well, the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education came out to meet us, and what he said is that Parliament is in recession. For some time, they have just reported, and for that matter, they will meet the Ministry of Education and Finance for them to come out with a decision.
Right.
But what we heard from our vice chancellors is that they cannot continue to run the schools, and they are going to close them down.
Right. Raymond, we're grateful for your time. We'll be following up on this more. We know that you're coming to join us on Joy News Prime later on this evening, and we'll be discussing more of that. So thanks very much. Let's move on now. The power challenges have really been hitting at all sectors, including what we just heard from the students. And Chief Policy Analyst of the Ghana Institute of Public Policy, Dr. Charles Reku Brobe, is warning that Ghanaians will be paying more for electricity from emergency power plants, which will eventually become white elephants. He says the current approach by government in handling the energy crisis is disorganized. Already, government, you may know, has signed for new plans from Car Powership in Turkey and Ameri plans from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Dr. Reku Brobe tells my colleague Francis Aban that the Electricity Company of Ghana is being forced by politicians to sign on independent power producers, which the country does not need.
Increasingly over the last 10 years or so, ECG is being forced to sign so many contracts with IPPs, independent power producers, that it is being taken away from its core business of distribution. I mean, for example, Asogli, instead of, which is a power generator, should have signed with VRA. It's signed with ECG. Car Power, whose ship I'm told has not even left Turkey yet, is also signed with ECG.
Is that true?
It's true, yes. The contract is between Car Power and ECG. So we have a situation where VRA, when it was in charge of all our generation, used to plan so that we'll know how much we need, when, how to tender and get it all together, and then there was a systemic power system here. Now, VRA, because it's had the total responsibility for generation taken away, although not by law, says, well, we are not responsible for planning the generation requirements. And then the ECG, who we expect to deliver good power to our homes and businesses, is now having its eyes shifted away from its core business to deal with so many independent power producers. So what I'm saying is that, look, let us rationalize our power sector so we know who is doing what. I mean, Gridco was separated from VRA because people, independent power producers who wanted to come to Ghana, were fearful that if it was still embedded with VRA, it could give VRA an overall advantage. And so said, create Gridco. But so confused have we been that instead of Gridco becoming what is called a system operator, they will commission new generation, they will produce wholesale sales to ECG and others. It has, in essence, not moved to what it was intended to be. And that really, as I said, look, if it's not functioning than anything more than it was doing when it was just a transmission department of VRA, then why do we have so many chiefs, so many directors, so many, you replicated an infrastructure which is doing nothing more than it was doing before. Okay. What they are doing now is part of what they are doing. They, all producers give their power to Gridco now. But where we are missing, the missing link is that who is doing the overall planning to make sure that we don't commission too much generation, because the tariffing system is such that if you bring in a plant and it's sitting there doing nothing, you still pay what we call the capacity charge. And so you don't want to have too many plants sitting idly in Ghana. There should be optimum, what we need, plus about 25–30% reserve margin all the time.
So if I get what you're saying, the planning is not being done by the authority that has to. So are we having more IPPs or more generation plants than we should?
Oh, absolutely. It's a free-for-all. I mean, politicians decide and force ECG to sign PPAs, whether we need the plant or not. And that's why you keep hearing politicians saying that we're going to export power, as if it's like cocoa. It should not be. You see, anytime a plant is sitting idle doing nothing, it reflects in our tariff, because we are having to pay what is called capacity charge, which is simply a charge for the plant being there.
So, as we speak, for Ghanaians who are yet to hear anything about the next major tariff increase, it's likely that if this is not fixed, we would have to pay a capacity charge for plants that we are not actually using.
Well, because if you've got overcapacity, you can only produce what you need. If you've got more than, let's say, 50% of a capacity, then yes, you'll be paying for the plants you're not using. That's why I'm saying that car power is probably long past the time when it was needed. If it comes now, or I think you have heard from other sources, our peak load now is 2,000 megawatts. The capacity we have is 3,000 megawatts. It's true the lake is not working to its full capacity, but if you go on and add car power and merits and all those other things, you finish up with almost 4,500, 5,000 megawatt capacity. For a peak load that's only 2,000, it will take, with the most productive increase in our industrialization, perhaps maybe a decade or more to go from 2,000 to 5,000 peak watt. So all those plants that are doing nothing will be being paid for. And well, precisely. And where will they be coming from? You and I will be paying for them.
Right, quickly, let's get onto the telephone line. Dr. Ishmael Aka is the head of research at the African Center for Energy Policy. He's joining us now. Doc, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. Now, Dr. Reku Brobe is raising a very critical issue. He's saying that very soon Ghanaians will be forced to pay more for electricity from emergency power plants, which themselves are not reliable and might end up becoming white elephants. Is that how you see the situation?
Thank you. I believe that we had a capacity deficit, like a generational deficit, not even a capacity, because we have more capacity. So we had generational deficit of about 450 to 500 megawatts. We had the capacity to produce this, but we didn't have fuel. So in the interim, we should have gone for more like money for fuel, other light crude oil or natural gas. We didn't do that. What we did instead was to sign an agreement for the power budget, which was not bad. I mean, we had a lot of alternatives, and that is one the government took. We wanted the government to limit the agreement to only 2 budgets. So, for instance, the car power or any other budget, that will give us about the 500 we need. Then we invest in permanent capacity, because the budgets are borrowed capacity. When they come and we use them, they will take them away. And they are very expensive. When you take the car power, the agreement is about $1.2 billion. That is outside the fuel we are going to use.
That's right. Now,
when you compare hydro-generated power, it will cost around 5 cents to generate a kilowatt hour. The budgets will cost us about 17 to 20 cents to generate a kilowatt hour. What it means is that if we are paying 2 for now, we are going to pay about 3 times what we are paying now for the budget. Then we should also revisit history. I mean, we brought this Osagifo back. Then in 1995, we signed an agreement. It came into Ghana 2002, and we've not used it. In fact, for 125 megawatts, we've not used it because we couldn't get the fuel for it. So now the power ministry is promising that we'll get fuel, and where's the fuel coming from? It's a very expensive option we took. But I believe that we've taken it already. The government is sending about 6 more power budget agreement to Parliament. That is why we want, they shouldn't send it. Let us concentrate on this now, invest in permanent capacity that are affordable and cheaper.
So Doc, let's recap this again. You are saying that the government is now pushing through 6 more agreements for 6 more power barges, for which the African Center for Energy Policy will caution that we stop that and rather invest the money into improving the capacity of our existing generation plants, or what?
investing in improving existing generation. In fact, investing in thermal plants, gas-fired thermal plants. Already we have 10 will be coming on board. Sankofa gas will be coming on board around 2017. So if you start building gas-fired thermal plants now, and even if it takes us about 2 to 3 years, I think that they will be in time, ready in time to use the gas we'll be producing. And these are for us, and they are cheaper as compared to, say, a badge that we are going to borrow from somebody at a very high price.
But Doc, why is anybody not advising government? I mean, you work with a civil society group. Have you made these arguments or positions known to government and perhaps giving them feasibility studies to support why this option is the better option than going for these power plants we will end up not using?
Well, we've made several forums at several. In fact, they normally even the government invite our submissions during budget planning, and we've been sending some of these comments. But these are more like suggestions, and the government can take or refuse to take. I mean, they are managing affairs on behalf of all of us, and probably they see better. Yes, they see things probably we don't see. So they compare so many factors and pick the one they think can be. For me, we believe that probably the quest to, the promise was that by 2016 December we should have 5,000 megawatts. And in order to achieve that, we have to do so many things. I mean, to achieve probably a political promise that is at the expense of national development. And that may be the case, but I can't say that is what it is. Yeah.
Right, Dr. Ishmael Aka. We're grateful for your time here on today's Big Story. Dr. Ishmael Aka is the head of research at the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Kojo Poku, an energy consultant, is also on the line. Mr. Poku, good evening. I'm happy that you could join us. This discussion, we keep going over and over with you. You have always said that the option of thermal and the options of nuclear, sorry, I beg your pardon, the options of nuclear and solar are the cheaper options. Government has not pursued. Now, Dr. Reku Brobe is telling us these emergency power plants we are bringing in, we will end up paying more for electricity, and yet these barges might end up becoming white elephants. Do you agree with this?
No, I don't.
You don't think there will be white elephants?
No, I don't think there will be white elephants.
But you have mentioned to us, sir, in the past that these barges are extremely expensive. So if it got to the point where we are unable to pay, it will come back to the same thing. Then they will become redundant, like what's the case with the Osagefo barge?
No, the Osagefo barge was the barge that was built for the Ghana government, and we own it. The cow power ship is not being owned by government.
Okay.
The cow power ship is owned by Kappa. The government is only leasing or buying the power that it will be producing. So if, let's come after 10 years or 2 years or 3 years, we are no longer able to pay for the power, the cow power ship will have to sail away. It's not going to be a white elephant.
Okay.
Government is not buying the cow power ship. That is the distinction that people should make. We are buying a ship. We are only going to buy the power produced by the ship.
I see. Now, what Dr. Ishmael Aka from ASAP is saying is that there are about 6 more agreements before Parliament to get about 6 more barges or so to augment the generation capacity that we require in order to keep ourselves afloat. He is saying that he would rather ask government to stop and rather reinvest the money into the existing generational capacities and help to improve them, or perhaps explore other alternatives like gas-fired energy. You have said solar. So do you think that is the way forward, that we must stop investing more into these emergency power barges and rather channel the money into improving our existing generational capacity?
Yes, definitely, he's right. In the long term, we don't end up owing basically keeping these infrastructure in the country, the mobile infrastructure, which can be taken away anytime. If you look at the money that will be spent on the money that will be paid to them over a period, if that money was to be used as a guarantee to build infrastructure which will be here for the foreseeable future, that is a much better option than to be contracting these ships and barges which are only here temporarily, and we are paying so much money to them. Now, do we need them when we are in crisis? Yes, we do. But in the long term, when we've been able to resolve this problem, do we still need to have all these expensive fuel mix in the country? I don't think we do. And I don't believe the fact that we need to pay for them now. We will need to pay them when we have been able to put certain measures in place to basically take care of this problem. So in the long term, what the gentleman is saying, he's 100% right. We need to redirect the investment.
What about what Dr. Reku Brobe is saying, that government's approach to solving this energy crisis has been disorganized? Is that what it is?
It has been disorganized because you realize that most of the times I use the word ad hoc. There's been a lot of different approach to it in terms of it's not organized, it's not well orchestrated approach. So yes, it is a disorganized approach. But I don't think that bringing in, negotiating a feed-in tariff for a power shift to come in, and then they will now sort out their own fuel. You know, the fuel for the ships is not going to be dealt with by government. It's going to be dealt with by Cal Power themselves. And they produce the power, and the government will pay for the power they produce. If they do not able to produce the power because they're not able to fuel the ships, there is a penalty which they will pay the government.
So quickly, before I let you go, I need a yes or no answer from you. You do disagree with Dr. Reku Brobe that eventually these emergency power plants will become white elephants?
I don't agree because, like I said again, we are not buying the ship. You see, Cal Power is very good at what they do. They've been doing this in so many countries, and they move in and produce electricity for countries in war-torn countries, and they have a well-oiled engine.
Kujaboko, I'm afraid that we have to wrap up here. I'm grateful. Thanks very much for your time on today's big story. Kujaboko is an energy consultant, and I'm happy that you could join us. That's where we draw the curtains for today's big story. Please enjoy the rest of our programs.